up here. Are you endorsing anyone in this second Suffolk district, or are you staying neutral in that? Do you have a candidate in that race?
Oh, I'm staying neutral. A lot of great candidates there.
Okay.
I know all of them and worked with all of them.
Okay. All right.
So at this time, no, thank you.
Okay. Well, Senator, we our guest has arrived. He's all plugged in. I don't know if you want to say good morning to State Representative Russell Holmes is in studio here. Senator Collins is on the line there. We were finishing up with him.
Good morning, Senator.
Oh, good morning, Russell. Russell and I came in together as House members elected in 2010, so we've been through a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So a lot more work to do.
Good to hear your voice this morning.
All right.
Likewise. Well,
right.
enjoy your morning, gentlemen, and everybody. Thanks for having me on, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Take care now.
Well, for some, we'll reintroduce. For most, we don't have to. To my right here, who's come in, State Representative Russell Holmes, and fifth. No, it's not the fifth. What's sixth Suffolk? It's you'll get all confused. Y'all should just stay wrapped.
There are 160 of us,
Wow.
so it's easy for you to confuse us. There are so many districts.
Yeah. So it's interesting because
I have one of these.
I never see him by himself. So it's usually his wife, his lovely wife, and his mom are out there in the camp. I told him it's like they used to have at Big Y, a grocery store. You buy one, you get two free.
Yes.
that's the Holmes family. So, State Representative Russell Holmes, good morning and welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me
to the round table.
Pastor Hobbs, can you do me a favor? Sure. Can you turn down my speaker set a little bit, just a little bit?
All right. So.
All right, but thank you for having me back.
Thank you. So before we get into the politics here, I just want to get into a little bit something that, on a personal note, because you and I both have family from Mississippi. I just talked to my sister who is down there going through this whole water thing, and it seems to be in our communities that are predominantly like Flint, Michigan, down in Detroit, and Michigan. How are your folks faring during this? I know you still have family down there as well.
Yeah, I have my immediate family is from Mound Bayou.
Okay,
so Mound Bayou is about 2 hours away from Jackson.
Okay.
And so for those who don't know, Mound Bayou is the largest all-black community in the country. I still have conversations with folks about how different it is growing up in a place where everyone you see in leadership is black. The mayor is black, every teacher is black, every police officer is black. So it's, my major awakening was in the third grade, Doctor, when I learned about Roots. And Roots came on. And because my dad was here for Tufts, to go to school at Tufts, and so I did spend most summers in Mattapan.
Okay.
But school years with my mom. They were never married. And so when I arrived in Mattapan, of course, I did see some white folks as I've come through the airport, and Mattapan had already transitioned from Jewish to black, essentially, when I was young. And so my awakening was that I thought most of the world was black.
Oh, okay. You had the opposite awakening.
Yes.
Then you had the rude awakening.
The rude awakening, right? That because I had just grown up seeing mostly black people. And so I remember asking my mom, how is it that black people let this happen to us? I didn't understand it, right? And because of the fact that I just had always seen leadership being black. And so I don't have very much family in Jackson, as you're asking that question, but Jackson is near and dear to me, and very much like you said with Flint. Here it is, we have a capital city run by a black mayor in a very Republican state, knowing it's not getting the resources it's supposed to get, and then want to, of course, say, now we're going to come in and save you, when he's been asking for resources for a very long time, right? So, yeah, it's going to happen to us because it's intentional, and even Mound Bayou. I can tell you, growing up in Mound Bayou, when you talk about water, when we would go, this is a sad commentary of what we grew up in, but this is the truth. When you go run a tub of water, when I was a child, you run that water and it would be brown. A very light. You're like today when you run a tub of water and you want to go take a shower or whatever, a bath, it's pretty clear because we had some of the best water in the country, right? But you literally, the water after, you have bathed is a little tinted brown when you're done, right? That's how we would start in Mount Bayou. And so that's how it was in Jackson.
Right.
And so that's where we began, and it has just progressively gotten worse.
And it's funny you said that, and we're going to pivot to why you're here, is that I saw a 60-minute piece on something very similar. It was in Mississippi, outside of Jackson, more in the country, and how the sewage was running into black, it was predominantly black family. We talked about it. We did a piece on it here on the broadcast, and it was just disturbing to me because when I saw it, I'm like, wow, these folks are actually living in raw sewage in 2022.
Well, when you think about when Robert Kennedy went to Mississippi in '68, as he's beginning his campaign, he stopped at Mount Bayou. Right, and it wasn't an intentional stop. It was like, hey, this is what you do going from Memphis to Jackson. You come down 61, and at that time, 61 was just a 2-lane road, because it still was up until Tunica, and we put in all of the casinos and all the other stuff. Now they're 4 lanes, but 61 is how you got up and down from Memphis, and it came straight through the heart of my town, small town. They moved that, of course, and moved the highway outside of the town. So, we lost that business because at least people used to stop sometime to shop, but they don't. But he'd just say, hey, I'm in Mount Bayou, let's stop. And literally he just pulls over, goes to someone's home, and the floor was still dirt.
Yeah.
Was still dirt.
Wow.
Right? And so growing, and it's very reminiscent to me because I was born in '69.
Okay.
Right? And so I think about, he saw poverty at 68 in 1968. That if you just Google Robert Kennedy, Mount Bayou, you'll see in some books he speaks to how he could not believe the poverty that was sitting right here in Mississippi, in the Mississippi Delta.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's what I was born in. I was born the following year in '69.
Right.
Right, and so that's what I arrive into this world with that level of poverty, and of course have benefited greatly from the war on poverty, right? So every step, every run of a ladder that I needed to get from straight out poverty to self-sufficiency, public schools, Head Starts, Pell Grants, subsidized Stafford loans, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just, if there was a run on the ladder from poverty to being self-sufficient, if I missed a run of a rung of the ladder, it's because I didn't know it was there. I accidentally skipped it.
Okay.
Right? That's where we come from.
But you kind of remind me of my experience in Augusta, Georgia. I'm from Augusta.
Yeah.
And I remember pumping water into what we call a foot tub.
Yeah.
To take a bath outside.
That's right.
We didn't have indoor bathrooms.
That's right.
And the houses were raised off the ground.
Correct.
And sat on cinder blocks. You know what I mean? So we used to crawl under the house just to get cool.
Yep.
So and starting out with the with the brown tinted water, and we lived in what turned out to be a cesspool, because all the companies, all the big manufacturing polluted the whole area, and then we found out later that we were living in this chemical cesspool.
So I was born using an outhouse.
So was I.
Yeah, as an outhouse in the back.
Yeah,
and
so was I.
And when we finally got a running tub and a running bathroom,
oh man, that was
just amazing.
Living on the top of the hog. That we used to call
absolutely. and then the other thing is we had a hurricane, because Mississippi gets real rain. Real rain. And we had a hurricane come through, and my grandmother had to rebuild the house, and that was when we got all of the updated. That was not long after Roots. It was like '78 or something. A big hurricane came through, and so I was at the time I was 9. So you think about my awakening at age 7, realizing that this world is not mostly black. The poverty that I grew up in is almost it's something that when I finally have had some success in this generation, folks just act like I don't know what it means to be poor.
Well, and that's the thing
that's what bothers me.
Right, is that they think that where we are now is where we start.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
We were dropped into this space, right? That we can't relate.
That we didn't earn it. That we didn't work hard.
But I think that's why we push back and challenge and saying, wait a minute, under my circumstances, if I can get out of this, there's no reason why, because it's bad today, but nowhere near what we had to go through coming up. Like I said here, I didn't have the dirt, but busing and all those things that could have shaped.
Yeah, so like even when you say busing in Boston, right? I didn't grow up really needing to attend the whole South Boston thing. That was just a little bit before me. That was just 8-10 years before me, right? Because when busing happened here in Boston, I was still, I was still in elementary or just getting started with kindergarten and the like. So I didn't have to get shipped over. But just think about where I grew up, right? You literally so I grew up in an all-black town, go 9 miles north, and literally, you would know this in the South, one side of the tracks is white, one side of the tracks is black, right? And then like the center of town has all the shopping areas and all of the things that would be positive, right? And then, you got a black school, you got a white school. You got, you got the movie theater on the white side of the track. You got the college on the white side of the track. You got the elementary school on the the better one, right? And even the black and white schools didn't even play each other in football.
That's right.
We all played just the black schools, and the white school plays the white schools. And so it was real clear. Yeah. So busing here was, hey, let's integrate and mix folks. There was no thought about integrating and mixing us. It was like, no, you stay there, and you play Shaw. You play, you play the white area of the black areas, and we're going to play the white areas. And so,
and
very
by the way,
environment.
Don't get caught on the wrong side of the tracks.
I didn't want to say it. You already know. Don't get caught over here, dude.
Like in this country, that's where people are trying to push us back to you on your side of the track, and me on mine. So, Representative Holmes, again, it's great to have you here with us. A couple of questions I have, and then we want to let you kind of navigate why you're up for re-election.
I am.
Two things. One is, what is the district that you represent currently now? Most people just think it's Mattapan, but it's a little broader than that. So if you can expunge on what districts you cover. And the question I have is, why is it that the reps and the city councilors, and I know that they're different, but have to run every 2 years, and yet the governor and all those every 4 years? Because it seems like you're always running for re-election. Is that something that can be changed at the state so that it's every 4 years so you can get time in there and get to work before you have to get right back out here on the campaign trail? I mean, it seems like disservice to your constituents.
So two things. One is I represent portions of Mattapan, Dorchester, Hyde Park, Rosendale, and JP.
Okay.
I'd like to think of the district as the heart of it is at Morton and Blue. And it's important to think of it that way because literally the last 40 or so years of state reps have come from within blocks of Morton and Blue. It's like the heart of the district. So you think I've been in office for 12 years. I live on Gooddale Road, which is right at Morningstar. And then just before me, William A. Allen lived on Deering Road, which is literally one street away from me. And then if you go up one street the opposite direction to Wellington Hill, that's where Shirley Owens Hicks lived, right? And she was in office for 20 years. And then two streets the other way from Goodale at Blue is where Royal Bowling Jr. lives. And so
Senator Owens lived in Madison.
Senator Owen lived on Wellington Hill as well. Yeah. So the district has been reshaped quite a bit, but it has really stayed contoured around the heart of what I would say black Mattapan, Dorchester. And the thing about it that you mentioned about do I represent just Mattapan, there is also Rep. Fluker Oakley, who represents the other half of Mattapan. And those are the only two districts in this Commonwealth. So you have 160 districts that we craft in redistricting. They're the only two that are majority black. And I know a lot of folks believe, Roxbury's this or that. There's just some truth about the situation. And that is Roxbury's been pretty gentrified.
Yeah.
And when I was elected with Nick, as he was talking about, when we were elected in 2010, there were only 10 seats that were majority of color when you put them together across the state, right? We had the thing happen with former Speaker Finneran, and there was this major thought that we're going to make sure this time when we do redistricting, it is fair, equitable, and we're going to get the most amount of diversity we can. Moran and the speaker at the time was like, yes, we're not going to have the same mistake we made with Finneran. And we went from 10 seats that were majority of color in the Commonwealth to 10 just in Boston alone, and 20 across the state. And then in this last wave of redistricting, we have gone from those 20 to 33. So think about this, Doctor. When we were elected in 2010, there were 10 opportunity seats where, Brockton, Randolph, Stoughton, Lawrence, Holyoke, you just think about Springfield, all the places where we, people of color, live. But the way the seats were design didn't have a majority of us in them. And now we have tripled that. And so when people say, hey, Rep, are you trying to mentor people and you have someone running against you and you're not mentoring? It's not just mentoring. It's also just creating opportunities for better representation. I said this the other day when I was on the radio with someone else. Rep Fox used to say, you guys keep thinking you need different Negroes. What you need are more Negroes. That's what you need at the State House. You need more of us in the building advocating. And so we literally, in this last phase of redistricting, took a seat that was represented by this area, some of it, represented by Rep. Liz Malia, who was retiring, and moved that seat, 11 Suffolk, to Chelsea. So think about that. Chelsea had been combined with other areas that were majority white across the city, and that had never had a strong voice. Now you think about what Chelsea looks like in their city council, and they will now send a Latino to the State House. They will have a voice that they should have had the entire time.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we hope in the Black and Latino caucus we're going to grow it by 3 or 4 folks, even just through redistricting, because we've created like the new Senate seat that's majority
I was
black.
going to ask you about that. So it's a good leeway. I was going to say, now with this redistricting, doesn't that create an opportunity for another Senate seat? Because currently there's 2 senators of color. Just one senator of color.
No, we have 2.
Who's the second one?
We have a senator from Springfield, and we have we have Senator Lydia Edwards.
Okay. So
just think about it. When
Chang Diaz is there still.
So we have 3.
Okay.
So but she's leaving.
Right.
So we know we have 2.
Okay.
Right. But then we're going to have a person of color, obviously, in the 2nd Suffolk now.
Okay.
And so we'll have those 3. But then we've created another majority Senate seat that's Latino, based around Lawrence. So we could get to what we hope. We hope to have at least 4, but potentially 5 people of color. Not including the Asian, so Black and Latino members in the Black and Latino caucus in the Senate. And that's going to be a very strong voice.
All right, so it sounds like we're progressing in the right direction.
No, we are. We need more of us in the fight, and not just, a single person. And the Senate seat as is reconstructed now, remember, I know you're on with Senator Collins, but the seat as it had set before, Linda and Nick, they obviously were competitive in that race. And that was a very competitive race. Even when Linda won, still it was the South Boston vote that was split in that race that created that opportunity for Linda. That what we had learned from the redistricting before with the Senate seat was we thought we were going to have these 2 majority opportunity seats in the Senate. But then South Boston outvoted our area in one of them, and that's why typically you would have someone sent from South Boston. And JP outvoted our area, even though we were a majority in that area. It's still the JP person was being sent, and so it made sense to create the Senate seat that Bill Owens had been in, that Royal Bowling had been in, reconstitute the seat up and down Blue Avenue.
617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. You're listening at the Round Table with Man Blue in studios. State Representative Russell Holmes, representing the 6th District. He's in here. If you have any questions, give us a call here at the station. So, Representative Holmes, you and I go back. We kind of started off with Rocky, and now I'm proud to call you a friend and someone who I can work with during my time as president of Manly. But that's
important because, folks think we should agree on everything.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's like I'm not supposed to have a thought, and you're not supposed to have
absolutely
one. And then we're not supposed to be able to disagree respectfully.
Right.
Like I can walk away and say, hey, doctor, on this one we don't agree on.
Exactly.
But no big deal.
Yeah, exactly. It's not personal.
We'll see you next time. Next time we'll be in the same fight in a different thing. Right. And so in the State House is important. I know we're going to get to, what I'm up to politically, but I guess like folks to understand at the State House, when you arrive, you need to arrive with some friends.
Right.
You can't just arrive there alone. Because it's a building, because my analogy has been, and it's a challenge and why we need more folks in the building, has been when I grew up, right? If I saw one of my friends in the fight, what did I do? I just jumped in the fight.
Right.
Just jumped in. right? And then we'll, do whatever we're gonna do.
Yeah, we'll deal with it later.
Yeah, and then we'll
win the fight.
Yeah.
Well,
but then when we get away from the fight,
Yeah.
that's when I'll say to you, doctor,
Yeah.
what was that fight?
Yeah,
about?
exactly.
What were we fighting
But
about?
that's a Southern way, though.
But see, this is where like I said, I think how our relationship built, because I'm not, even though I'm not from Mississippi, my roots are, and that's what the upbringing in my house is you go that, because I remember going back when you were standing up for your constituency and you got into it with the speaker at the time, it was DeLeo.
Yep.
And you lost some of your chairs because
Lost it,
right.
Yep.
But what stood out to me the most, I'll be very honest with you, was that the folks didn't just jump in
Yep.
to help you, and folks that should have been jumping in, it was like you were on this island by yourself for doing what you should have been doing.
Yep, because that's what happens when you arrive in the building. You arrive in the building, and now all of a sudden, some guy that you've never heard of is now the boss. My boss is the people. That's who's my boss. And so I just believe that if I deliver, meaning this district, 6 Suffolk, delivers you 95% of this vote being Democrat, we should be the first. We are the largest voting district, Democratic district in this Commonwealth. It is a district that when something's happening, you should come to me first, not last. You shouldn't come think about, equity at the end. No, it should begin at it should begin. And then all my literature, you'll see, it'll say, I work for you. Where does that come from? It comes from 2 places. One is to just remind people, I don't work for the Democratic Party. I don't work for the leadership team in that building. And I work for the people who send me to the State House. And I got that because there was Marilyn Foreman. You know Marilyn Foreman?
Yes, I do.
Marilyn Foreman was the first person to do this. This has happened a number of times since I've been elected. Like when I first got elected, she's called me and we went through something, and she says, Rep, who do I send a letter to or an email to say you've done a good job? Like, do I send that to the governor? Do I send that to the speaker? Who's your boss? And I said, Marilyn, take the letter, stamp it, and send it to yourself. Because you're my boss.
Right.
The reason I respond the way I do is because we are responding to you,
Right.
who is the boss. And I'd say to Devin, who's my staff person, been for a while, I'd just say to him, I'm just your supervisor. That's all I am. The persons you work for are the people who are calling you on that phone. That is your boss. That who's, and so it humbles me every time I think about it, that these folks who didn't know me 12 years ago, there were 5 people on the ballot. We went out, we had a conversation with folks, and they darkened my name in an oval. And I have never forgotten that.
Well, that's refreshing, man. Just to realize that you have a politician to realize that the people who are sending you, those are people, that's who you're working for. You're not working for someone who's in this office aloof someplace, and saying, hey, listen, I want you to do this. I'm appointing you to this particular chair.
That's right.
It's the people that are
But that's what everyone's
there.
trying to get appointed to now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
everyone, when you get there, you are trying your best to have the influence in the building to move legislation, to move the budget, to have more staff for constituent services. But if that comes at a cost of me not being accountable or me not being in line with my people,
You're gonna lose it anyway.
It's not worth
that's
it.
not. It's not worth it for me to give that away.
I hear you.
Not at all.
So let's talk about that for a second, because what's been going on. I know the legislation is in recess now for everybody's out campaigning, but what is this that you explaining and articulating? A lot of our folks don't understand how the State House works, and we're talking about, I believe the budget this year was somewhere in excess of around $50 million, $50 billion, right? And that increases every year. That number, and really, as you said, you work for your people, is bringing that home to your constituents. But I think also, as you alluded to, folks don't understand that it isn't just getting you elected, but it is also standing with you when things are and understanding that if they're not, folks, it's sad, but politicians count votes, right?
Yeah, that's
so
what
if they see Representative Holmes, he got elected, but he only got elected with 500 votes.
Correct.
I'm not scared of 500 people.
That's correct.
When the folks on the other side had 15,000.
That's correct.
And I know you're out there trying to correct it. So I guess is that what can we do here as a public service as we continue to try to do? Because my thing is, I think on Tuesday, I think it's going to be a low turnout.
I pray not.
I do too, but I also deal with the reality of what I've seen over the years, and particularly now with the problems with the Orange Line, and just school starting back. It's the day after Labor Day. Some folks aren't even back, and we had early voting starting last week, and I think they said it was around 250,000 people. So
I think, Larry, so when I first was elected in 2010, the vote in the district was about 2,400 in the primary.
2,400.
2,400
Out of how many eligible?
Well, out of
around
about,
approximately.
45,000 people, about 25,000 eligible. Right?
Okay.
Wow.
About 10% of the vote. But that has moved over the years with all the things we've done with the Votes Act of early voting, absentee voting, mail-in voting. Last year, that number went to 8,700.
Okay.
8,700 people in my district voted in the primary last year.
Uh-huh.
That might have been a Trump effect. That might have been we need to really move on this as well. And it's COVID. It's like even now as we campaign, it's a weird campaign season, right? You don't want to be on people's doors because of COVID, right? People have gotten harassed on the phones like crazy during COVID. They don't want to answer their phones, right? Almost every time you answer,
me in that column, but
people don't even answer the phones anymore.
Right.
And so, you're having to do it more by lit and by Instagram and by Facebook. And it's not as personable as campaigning has been, but it's also gotten easier, right? I mean, literally, it's not. I'm literally sending you the application to vote by mail, and all you gotta do is at your home now, work with your family and send that back in.
Technology,
Right. Yeah. Well, speaking to that, someone's texting and they said, let the rep know that he's more than welcome to use this as a vehicle to get to your constituents.
I do appreciate it.
It's because I think it's important that we hear from. But I mean, you're out there in the community. You're doing the work. Like I said, it's like buy one get two free. It's not just you. You're the only one that gets a salary from the taxpayers, but what they get is more than what they paid for.
My wife works hard. Yeah. She's a hard working lady, and my mom works very hard. And I agree. They get two for free, and those two women are some hardest working women. I can tell you. And my wife, I was just saying to her even as I left, she just seeing her on the phone 10 hours, 12 hours, 10 hours, just all day calling, the volunteer list from the church list, we to the folks who volunteered 10, 12 years ago, the folks who are good friends of the family, because when you get in a race, obviously it's everything on the race. And quite frankly, this is a race that's really a referendum on have I been doing the job? It's a referendum on what happens over the last 12 years and have I delivered. Yeah. And so every piece that I've sent out and everything I'll be handing out on Tuesday will be emphasizing the things that I think we do. Like people want to say, oh, what's your vision? What's this? No, what's the job? Right. The job is constituent services. Right. Like, do you show up? Right. Like, it is important to know what you do when nobody's looking. Right. Right. Do I show up to every neighborhood meeting? Yes, me, Russell Holmes. That is important. Yeah, no, you don't elect my staff. You don't elect my interns. You elected me, right? And so I'm showing up, and I know it bothers people when I say it, but it's just the straight out truth. I've been to more than 2,500 community meetings in the last 12 years, more. But we like to keep the number light just to make sure no one can ever dispute it. And Mr. Hardaway, the person I'm running against, had been to none of those meetings. And now you show up in meetings now. We were in a meeting last week, right here, dealing with some issues around CIA and TNT, the Talbot Norfolk Triangle. And they just asked a basic question about redistricting. And Paul says, hey, well, what about are you representing over near Roberts Playground? And the gentleman says, where's Robert's Playground? Wait a minute. How do you not know where Robert's Playground when it's down the street from you? And so to me, you have to be in neighborhood before anyone's looking, before you're I got recruited to run. Like, I wasn't thinking about running for office in 2010, but it was the Garrett Kincaids, the Mr. Clarks, the Mr. Coopers, and all of them who said, look, we think you should be in office. Right. That made me to get in office.
So let's talk about that. Let's unpack this last legislative session before it closed, and what was in there that your constituents have benefited, and what you were fighting for during this legislation, and why people need to bring you back. Because I know, like, COVID money is kind of dwindling down. There's been an inflection, but that's going to change, and what you do as an advocate for them is going to be a continuing. It's not just right now. The state's been flush with cash pretty much everywhere because of that extra added money that is running out. So
it sounds like we're flush, right?
Okay, maybe I'm wrong.
Because it sounds like a lot of money when you say billions of dollars.
Right.
But like you said, we spend in excess of $50 billion a year. So that's a run rate of greater than $4 billion a month. So when you have $6 billion, that's about a month and a half of money. It's not like that's a spend that is like some enormous amount of money. We believed at the end of the session that we were going to be able to have some economic development pushes that were going to be really targeted around equity, not equality. I'm not an equality guy, meaning I believe money should go to the places that are needed most. And that's why when people ask me, hey, am I in favor of a free tea? No, I'm not in favor of the free tea. I'm in favor of the free tea.
It's not free. Someone's paying for it.
Someone's paying for it.
The taxpayer.
But if we're going to give to someone, we're going to give to those who are in need. Like, I think about how a free tea means a free tea for everybody. And I work in two places downtown. I work at the State House, and I work at 200 Clarendon, which is, what we call the old John Hancock building, the tower. And when I get off there, when I get off at the Orange Line, I go upstairs, I know what I left in Mattapan as a community, and I know what I arrive into as a community. Right? And so you think about a free tea. These guys have red line, orange line, green line,
blue line,
all of it right here together. You can just walk down to it. Right? Look at what we have to do. We have to take a bus or a train or a trolley to get to a heavy rail, right? And then I'm okay with those people getting more because they need more in my neighborhood. But the person downtown that has all of this transportation available to them at their fingertips, who are going to now be able to walk downstairs and walk into a heavy rail transit, I'm going to pay for that person's tea.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not paying for that. Particularly as that person then gets off the tea and goes back upstairs to their $1 million condo, $1.5 million condo, $2 or $3 million condo. That's not someone's tea I think I should be paying for.
Hence the difference between equity and equality.
Absolutely. Exactly. And so what happened was there's a law from 1986 or 87 that says when we have this amount of money, we have to give it back to the people. And so then the governor alerted us as we were going through the final stages of right before the session that, hey guys, you guys thought you were going to be able to do these things. Just know you might be able to still do them because they're about $1.5 billion that you were thinking about sending back. But $3 billion of the money we have is going back to the people, and it's going back to the people in an equal fashion. So all of us will get someone in the neighborhood of about 7.5%. We don't know exactly what the number is of what we gave in taxes last year. So we're going to all equally, whoever paid in taxes in the state will equally get distributed that money. And so when you take $3 billion back out of what we thought we had, and then now that leaves us with about $1.5 billion that we think we still have, and we have about $2.5 billion left from the ARPA money or the COVID money as you called it. So $4 billion is less than a month's spend rate.
So before we take this call, it's just so if you don't mind clearing up for me and our listening audience, you're saying that law says that money has to go back. So you're saying that if I'm a taxpayer and I'm paying a payroll tax every week, that there's money coming back to all the folks who've been paying their taxes because of the law that says
absolutely that
this money must be returned to.
Yes.
Okay.
Every one of us will get a check that if we paid our taxes last year, every one of us, the date is September 15th, well, the actual amount of the over collections that we've had, when it meets this metric, all of us will get, come September 15th, we'll figure out how to get that money back before the end of the year.
Well, I'm sure my chief financial officer of the family saying, bring it on.
And so just know there was a move by the speaker and by the Senate president to say, well, wait a minute, should we change this law? Like, should we go and say, no, we're not doing this? And every time that has been polled, like, hey, should we change the 86 or 87 law, whatever it is, should we change it? That comes back like 80%. No, give us back our money.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's the taxpayers' money. If you have more than you have, more than we expected, right? Then it should go back to where it came from, because we know that historically it doesn't get spent in a fair and equitable way, but it gets wasted a lot of times, like you said. So we're gonna sneak this call in for you. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table with State Representative Russell Holmes with us this morning.
Good morning. I have a question for the representative.
Yes.
And my question is, since Massachusetts want to be this self-appointing leader for the rest of the country to follow in terms of politicians-wise, how come there isn't a term limit set for all politicians across the board, from city councilor all the way up to governor, doing 2-term limits? No more, no less, because since the United States president can do only 2 terms, why can't all the politicians do the same thing? Because we have, for many years, let the same old people in office, most of them do absolutely nothing. Why is that?
Well, I'll let him answer that, but let me just throw my little caveat in there, right? I feel like there are term limits already, and it's incumbent upon the voters if they're not doing their job. Because I don't think someone should be thrown out because of a term limit. This is just me. I'll let you answer if they're doing the work, right? We lose good people, and then we end up with somebody. Because I think, like, for instance, if we didn't have term limits on the presidency, we might still have had a Barack Obama instead of a Donald Trump, right? And now we get stuck with getting someone in because we need. So if folks aren't doing the job, I think the voters are the term limit. They term limit them out that way. But,
so can I say, you began this conversation with why is it that I have to run every 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
That is the term limit. And so when you say why don't we have a term limit, every single one of us have to come back to the voters every 2 years. Well, and we have to, and I don't think that should change. You asked me, do I think it should change, and do we have to continue to be held accountable at both the federal level and the state level? Every U.S. Congress person has to go back to their voters and ask, am I still doing my job? And the Senate obviously has a 6-year term because they split it each, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But the House, whether that be in Massachusetts or at the congressional level, we are most representative of this country because of the fact that we're hearing and it's changing every 2 years. Just think about it.
Right.
The term limit of the president was a self-imposed term limit.
No,
Don't you know George Washington could have been president until he died,
right.
But he made a decision, and said to Alexander Hamilton and everybody else, hey, I'm out of here after 2 terms.
No, I get that. I'm saying I get the term limits. I guess for me, because I see, after the first year, now
you haven't done anything.
Well, not just that, but I'm talking about why I think it should be 4 years instead of 2. Is I find that folks are just continually campaigning. It's like once you get through that first cycle, especially if you have a competitive, now you don't really have a lot of time in the office because you've got to get right back on the campaign trail. That's the only reason why for me.
So that's
I think
what
the
makes
2 years is.
That's what makes it hard, right? And that's what makes it most accountable. So when the caller asks why is it, I also just think in this moment, I strongly disagree that everybody's been in office. We have a lot of folks at the city council level and at the state rep level. Just think, when I first arrived in office, that we had Gloria Fox, 30 years, Byron Russian, 30 years, Ben Swan, 20 years. You had Coakley Rivera, 10 or 15 years. You had Jeff in office. You had just a whole bevy of people. We still have folks in the State House who have been there 30 years or so, but that's none of us. Come next year, if I have the honor of being reelected, I will be the longest serving Black or Latino member in that building in 12 years. And in a building, that seniority, to the caller's point, matters. If you want to get into the most senior positions, seniority in that building actually matters. So, we're going to put a freshman. We're going to put them in a low cube, probably down somewhere in the basement, and they're going to begin there as they continue to go through all the, they're going to be in a temporary space for the first 6 months or first 3 months, and what we call, the bullpen, and then they'll get out of the bullpen and they'll get a little small area, and then they'll learn. Because it's a complicated building. You have to learn how to put in all of these pieces of legislation. You have to learn how to put in all these pieces of the budget. And then you have to deal with all of the phone calls that are coming constantly about, hey, this person's in jail, not being treated right. Get my unemployment, fix my housing, fix this street. The job.
This is why they call them freshmen. You know what I mean? Because it's a learning process. Or in sports, we call them rookies.
That's what. You know what, Doctor? Let me tell you what I often say, and it sometimes offends folks. Rookies, because they make a lot of rookie mistakes. And then folks sometimes want me to co-sign their rookie mistakes. You get out here doing some things that we've seen this last week at the city council, and you say rookie mistakes. You should not be out here prompting things where we are literally fighting in the city, outside the city council chambers. We have to be able to understand that these roles have an enormous amount of responsibility. And with that responsibility comes, you have to have some restraints. And too often, too many folks are now just, because of Twitter, Facebook, and all the other stuff, everyone's opinion is just equalized on social media. And it doesn't matter what experience you have, what knowledge you have. It's all about, hey, who has Facebook likes, who has Facebook followers or whatever. And that's how folks feel like, hey, I can do what he's doing or she's doing, because their experience doesn't matter, because I have more followers than what they do.
Well, unfortunately, due to the lack of public education around civic government in our structure, a lot of people don't understand.
Not much civic going
it's
on.
like a lot of people do not understand how that
Civil.
works. A lot of people do not understand what you do every day, which is very, very difficult, because you have to be an octopus.
But what I try to do, Doctor, is be what I have said over the last 12 years, is an honest broker. And I didn't call myself that until recently. I was in a meeting, and we were at the ribbon cutting or the groundbreaking for the new building that's coming up over on Morton Street, where the old police station.
Okay. The state park grounds.
Yeah,
there.
now,
State
now
House.
over the bridge,
Okay. Right on the left-hand side.
By the
there.
barbecue
Yeah,
pit.
Right,
Over
right
the
across from
barbecue
the gas station.
And so when we built that bridge, we had to knock down the police station. It was our staging area, and then we moved the bridge in, if you recall, Larry, over a weekend, and then reconnected it and got it all together. But we left that space to then be developed, and it took a long time to get
What's going in there?
It's going to be 49 units of housing.
Market, affordable? What's
All affordable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, affordable ownership and affordable rental.
Okay.
Which is a challenge in the neighborhood, because the neighborhood felt like, hey, when you use the word affordable, are these about to become the projects? No, that's not what this
Right,
is. Affordable is still, working folks.
Right.
Working folks affordable. But
Right.
the point being, when we were going through that, there was a lot of contention between neighborhood and the developer. And as we were at the groundbreaking, they would say, hey, Russell, you were the referee. Russell, you did this. And then finally, Krista Coordinate stood up, who's at the time was Undersecretary of Housing, but now is over at Mass Housing. And she says, Russell is not a referee. That is not his job. What he is an honest broker. And what I do is I just try my best to listen to all of the areas and all the perspectives. Everyone knew I wanted to build the building, right? But we have to build it in a way that I engage community and hear from community and let the developer be pushed to do the things that are important to the community. And that's not an octopus. That is, hey, I'm going to hear you, I'm going to hear you, I'm going to hear you, and none of you guys are going to get everything you want. None of you. So when you walk in, you should all know none of you are getting everything you want.
All right.
But all of you should get some of what
Right.
That's right.
Thank you, caller. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, caller.
All of you should get some of
Thank
what you want.
Yeah.
though.
So also, to that point,
But you had asked me about legislation. If you wanted me to get into that too.
Yeah, I do. But because when you're talking about the real estate, I just want to say kudos to the development there with the old Cody Ford and all that coming. I mean, most people don't see it if you're not coming through that way.
Yep.
Because I just happened, because of the traffic in that man, took that right
On Cummins
onto-
Highway?
Yeah,
That should be on Cummins Highway.
Yeah, I mean,
over by the
yeah,
George Lopez Funeral Home.
Yes.
George Lowe, right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an apartment.
Not an apartment. How many units are over there?
Okay, so I want to make sure, because I was sitting here thinking, is it 49 units at Morton Street? I forget the number. I think there are 74 units at Cody Ford, and I might be 39 units at Morton Street. I forget exactly.
You
It's
drive
just,
through there,
Okay.
it's just like this.
I haven't been through there in a while.
well, if you haven't, but you not only need to drive and see
Rexford Road.
you need to see Regis Road.
Regis Road,
at the same time.
Right.
Rexford, yeah, and so there's that whole neighborhood has changed, and it's changed, and that was another very difficult conversation with many meetings, with many iterations of, hey, Woodrow, help me out, the cut through street, I can't think of it,
Woodhaven.
Woodhaven.
Yeah.
Woodhaven was very bothered by the station coming, right? Because when it was first proposed, Mr. Parks, God rest his soul, was just a strong advocate to say, no, we don't want you drilling and breaking our foundations, right? And so when you think about the 9.8 mile track from Hyde Park to downtown, the only place in that 9.8, 9.6 miles, whatever it is, that you can actually take the tracks and push them out and put the platform in the middle is in that one location.
Wow.
And so after we went through all the analysis, and after, this is why I love it when there are folks who are no to things. Because like when we did the thing at Casey Overpass, the bridge near Forest Hills, all the no folks just do every problem you can possibly throw at it. And it just makes the project better. Now, you go back through Forest Hills and you look and you say, there was a bridge here?
Yeah.
Why was there a
I did
bridge
that the
here?
other day. I was like, oh my God, what happened?
Why was there a bridge
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
right? I mean, because all the no and the naysayers and the hate this idea were all in the project from the beginning. And so that's the same thing that happened there. And so finally we looked and said, hey, can we put a platform in the middle? And sure enough, we could. And we didn't have to do any of that ground breaking or drilling and all the other stuff. And now, because that's where I grew up. I grew up on Rockdale, which is, the street where Burger King is.
Yeah.
And so now when you think about the fact that you can get down the end of my old street, go hop on the train and get you downtown in 20 minutes. Very different ride than, hey, I'm going to go down to Mattapan Square and figure out 31 or the trolley. Which one am I going? Which one's coming first? Which one is doing whatever?
Right.
To get to a heavy rail, I can literally get downtown in 20 minutes. And that's, and let me just say, there's someone who did this for the first time recently because they had just been reluctant to change. And then with the Orange Line being down, they said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try it. And now when they did it one time,
they've been hooked.
they say, I ain't never doing that again. I'm not ever going to get on the trolley to go to the Red Line ever again. Because just think, you can be right downtown at South Station in 20 minutes.
Right.
They said, never doing it again.
So we're coming up on time. That's why I want to give you time on your legislative piece.
Oh, wow. Time just moves so
I know,
fast.
so it's
when I'm
like
on this.
sitting at the kitchen
Yeah,
table, right?
You're having fun.
Right. So I want to give you an opportunity to address your
Okay,
constituency.
so in that I only have 1 minute, it feels like.
No, you've got. Yeah, I just want to give you ample time. We've got about 10 minutes.
Okay,
here.
so I want to begin with Larry, something you and I have done together, because it's important, and that is the Peace Officer Standard and Training, which you sit on that commission. I want to just remind folks that we had filed, Jamal Crawford and I, Jamal brought a gentleman, Dr. Goldman, to the State House 10 years ago with me and some others, Rasan Hall and others, to talk about the fact that we were one of the last few states to not have it so that officers did not have to be certified. And we had been having this conversation for years. And the unfortunate thing happened with George Floyd and the murder. And so then we pulled up that legislation and we went from, hey, can we have a commission to study whether or not we can do this, to we are going to put the commission together. People don't understand. It was hard just to get a commission to study if we should do it. But then after George Floyd, it wasn't a commission to study if we should do it. It was a commission to actually do it. And those are two very different things.
Yeah.
The governor had agreed to do it before even George Floyd. And I'd like to always remind people he had done that. But in that, Larry, you sit on the post commission itself that will decertify officers, that will look at their backgrounds. But a part of that bill also was to look at civil service, to figure out how is it that we get our police, fire, EMS more diverse. Part of that bill also was to look at how do we deal with use of force issues. How do we stop these chokeholds and everything else? And then the final part of that was, hey, what do we do about making sure that we deal with all the structural racism that's been happening? And I can tell you, because you asked me about what was important in the last session, there were two things that were going to be the straw that broke the camel back. One was qualified immunity, which is, can I sue a police officer personally when these things happen? And the other thing was undocumented folks being able to get their driver's license. And so at the end, it came down to, hey, we're negotiating. We got the four big things that we came out of the box with, the electors of color. Here are the things that were most important. We got the commission. We got all of these other things that were part of this. And it came down to, are you going to now get your driver's license, or are you going to now get qualified immunity? And I said, and they were like, those are going to be things we can't do. I said, fine. Let's get the stuff that we've all, let's not make perfect the enemy of good. Let's get the things across the finish line that we have. But I said to them, the number one thing I want to work on in the next session, number one, would be undocumented driver's license. And that's what the caucus number one thing should be. And when you say, what did we get done last session? We got that done.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And it's going to be sued. We're going to get sued, meaning we've been sued. We're going to probably potentially have it on the ballot. And that's the reason I went through this long story. We need to be making sure come November, if this is on the ballot, we show up to make sure that we don't lose this accomplishment for those who are in this country undocumented to not be able to go back to not being able to drive. That is absolutely unacceptable.
No, show up like it was like when the marijuana question was
That's
on.
right. And I'm hoping those because they showed up.
Yeah. No.
There's no doubt.
They did show up.
But they showed up for marijuana. But then now when marijuana or cannabis is looking to come to the neighborhood,
We're not sharing in an equitable way.
well, we don't want it.
No.
Literally,
That's
when you think about Four Corners, there are two shops, both owned and being proposed by people who are black. And the resistance in this neighborhood to cannabis is phenomenal. Do not want a shop. Now, we don't want you locking my people up. We don't want that. They would have the vote to make sure you don't lock me up. But don't bring it.
Don't bring it here, but it's from someone else's backyard.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you have all across this Commonwealth in white communities many cannabis shops.
Yeah.
It's just hard to get them in our community because we have.
But I would like to commend you on the post
Thank you.
legislation, and that as a former police officer, as a commander, of a large police department, as a segment of a large police department. But my point here is having the ability to decertify an officer who has displayed numerous times, the inability to police fairly is extremely important. In my opinion, more so than qualified immunity. Let me explain why. Because if I know as a cop that I can lose my certification, qualified immunity will never come into issue.
That's the same thing I
would
was saying.
never do anything to jeopardize.
Same thing I was saying.
So we got about 3 minutes. So quickly, but I just wanted to piggyback on that because I said I want to let you close it out with your argument of why you should be reelected. I think you should more than well, but to also say that I have to explain a lot of times to black police officers the work that you and a few others put in so that MAMLE or the minority police officers have a permanent seat. Permanent. This is not people think that I'm serving and once I'm done it's over. It's a permanent seat. Amen. That is huge. So I want to thank you personally for the work that you did to get us that, because a lot of folks claimed they wanted to help us but they didn't, and you publicly supported that, and that is in the law.
It's in the law.
That is in the law.
It is a permanent seat. And so in my last minute, I'm just going to simply say there are three things that we do as elected officials. One thing we do is the constituent services. And I'm going to continue to stay committed to attending all the neighborhood meetings, being on the ground, dealing with the issue, listening to people, being an honest broker. The second thing we do is we make sure that we deal with the issues around the budget. I'm going to continue to look at how do I get money to Lena Park, Sportsman's Tennis Club, No Books, No Ball. Getting money to our area is important in every bonding bill, in every budget. And then the third thing is around legislation. I will continue to advocate for the things that are meaningful to us. Like it's meaningful to us to have a Voting Rights Act. It was very meaningful to many of the ladies to make sure that we had the Crown Act so that they're not discriminated against with their hair. Things of that nature are just so important, and that's why I believe that I have done what is most important to this neighborhood. I'm unabashed about who I represent. I think the whole building in Massachusetts, they know who I'm here for, and I just ask for people's support on September 6th.
So, folks, again, the election is this coming Tuesday, September 6th, 2022. This is a live broadcast today in the studio. Step Representative Holmes, 6th Suffolk District. Again, sir, the areas that you represent that are coming out to vote and what you can vote in, because people get confused about that. Even when you vote at there's three polling places, but they're not all for you. So
that's right. And so Morning Star Baptist, why don't we do it that way?
Yes.
If you're heading to Morning Star Baptist, you're probably in the district, or you are in the district. If you're heading to the Lee School, if you're heading to the Boys and Girls on Talbot Ave, if you're heading to Codman Square at the library, if you're heading to Codman Square Tech, those are the areas. If you're heading to it used to be the Elihu Greenwood, but both Greenwood schools are in the district, the one in Hyde Park and on Geneva. So that's the area I represent.
Well, if you're at the Lee School, I'll be working there. Just come in and say hello to me. I'll be working the polls there at the Lee School on Tuesday. So, State Representative Holtz, like I said, it's been fastest hours gone by, because I had a couple other questions I'm going to put on the back burner for you. I want to hold them. But we'd like you to come in, frequently as folks are texting, but after the elections, give us an update on what your proposals are, what your plan is for your next session.
Sure.
In the
Well, brother, listen, from two men from the South, it was a pleasure meeting you, man. You know what I mean? It's nice meeting you, and I really support you, Doc.
Thank you very much.
I kind of wish more. My kids live in the district, so
I'm asking for their vote.
I hear you, brother.
He's working for you. Working for you. All right, that's going to do it for us here at the round table. Again, folks, thank you. We will, God willing, we'll be back here next Saturday. Pastor Hobbs, thank you, sir. Appreciate you as always, my brother. All right.
Keep it sharp, brother, and be blessed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always